Welcome to video number 2, Hope-Filled Parenting. In our first video, we took a pretty close look at how important it is that our children have a vision of a compelling future. Challenged you to have a conversation with your child perhaps about how you view these things, how you view your future, and how we as parents can be more helpful than we realize by being transparent with our kids rather than projecting an image of somebody that we're not, letting them know that part of being an adult, which by the way is a cool thing, is learning and growing into our own skin. And so if we're willing to do that, then certainly we're willing to help them do the very same thing. So what we want to do in this video is we want to answer a different question. Basically it's what's my job, but what we're looking at here is that too many times teenagers think that their job is boring. Their job in the house. It's just either they don't have a job or the one that they have is something they really can't get their head around too much. So I want to tackle this problem because I do think it's a problem. This gets to purpose. This gets to identity. This gets to how they see themselves in your family system. And everyone in the family, I believe, needs a job that they enjoy. So during World War II, the Nazis figured out something very powerful in the way they would execute punishment and even try to bring their prisoners to the point of insanity. So their jobs, many times, as they envisioned this for their prisoners, was to get them to move a pile of rubble from one end of the compound to the other, and then they would end their day. And the next day they would get up, they would take the same rubble and they would move it back to the original location, and then back and forth and back and forth. And after 2 or 3 times, everyone looked up and said, oh, I guess this is our job. It's to do meaningless, purposeless activity. Exactly. And it works. Now, I don't think any parent sets out to do that on purpose, but what we have to be careful of is that we don't use our kids in the family system in meaningless and purposeless ways. So a personal example here might be helpful. As we were raising our 4 daughters, there was a phrase that we used in our home. We called it subdivision chores. Now, it was a little bit of a slight on the kids that live in the subdivision and they have basically like 1 or 2 jobs. It's to make their bed, maybe clean their room, and take out the trash. And it was always amazing to me how all those other kids would have such an attitude about doing something so simple, except that my kids did it too. I noticed the transition when we moved from more of a city subdivision style living arrangement to a rural arrangement where we had horses and chickens and rabbits. Oh my, we had animals everywhere. And with that, our girls had to step it up. So they stepped it up by getting up early and doing these chores or coming home after school and doing these chores. And I mean, they did it and they enjoyed it and they found purpose in it and they knew that we needed their help. Well, at the end of raising our girls, we moved back into more of a subdivision lifestyle. And I couldn't believe within a matter of months, my girls balked at subdivision chores. And I went, how is this even possible? And what I believe about it was, if kids don't see the identified purpose for what they do in the home, it's very easy for them to lose heart. Now, whether we know it or not, growing up, we all have essentially 3 brains. We all start off with the child's brain, and I call the child's brain the begging brain. And the begging brain basically says, just give me, feed me, love me, take care of me. That's what children do. It's okay. That's what a child does. But what we hope to do is move our children to more of an adolescent brain, which is more of a bartering brain. Instead of begging for stuff, now they're bartering because they're like a little more excited about some of the things they get in adolescence, but they're willing to make a trade. Now they're willing to clean the room and do some chores and do some things because I get to go out this weekend with my friends, or I get to go on spring break with my best friend. And so they're more of a bartering brain. But we even want to move our adolescents out of a bartering mindset into what I call a bettering mindset. And when we get to adulthood, this is a major transition, that what we do is about helping make things better for ourselves and for others. I mean, this is one of the biggest differences between a child and an adolescent and an adult. And so what we have to do is take a look at these elements in the home and try to help our children understand how much we really do need them in the family system. So no matter what the chores are, there have to be some constants in their experience. And I want to share some of those with you now. The first one is this: family tasks should be understood in the context of value. Now, what I mean by that is the things that our children do, they have to understand how important it is. And we want to make sure that we never dispense punishment towards things that otherwise they would like, but because it's now a punishment, they hate it. For example, writing sentences, memorizing scriptures, doing menial tasks. You know what I believe? I believe there is no such thing as a menial task. 1968, there was a sanitation strike in New York City. Interestingly enough, it impacted other parts of the country like Memphis, Tennessee. And you had sanitation workers saying, enough, enough. Overtime, weekends, long evenings, unexpected call-ins. I mean, they were basically being taken advantage of, and it made national news. Do you know how long it lasted? A week. In other words, no city can manage piles and piles of garbage for even a week until finally somebody says, we got to start treating our sanitation workers better. Imagine what our world would look like if people were not willing to pick up trash, care for babies, care for the elderly. There is no such thing as a menial task. And I say that for this reason, because I don't think it's helpful for the family system for us to dispense menial tasks to our children and then wonder why they have an attitude about taking out the trash. So what we have to do is we have to assign tasks in the context of family value. And you want to answer this question. I mean, what would happen to our family if you didn't do this? I mean, this is your job. This is an important job. We really appreciate, we really need you here. And I don't mean phony or baloney, just telling them stuff that's not true. What I'm talking about is letting them know that what they do is a valuable contribution to the family. It does so much for a teenager's mental health when they know that. The second thing I want to encourage you to do is understand that family tasks should be given with opportunities for job promotions. All right? So I think the prison system does a pretty good job at this. In many prison systems, you will sometimes see workers on the side of the road doing tasks, and your thought is, what keeps them from just taking off? I'll tell you what keeps them from it. Because they've put in the length of their sentence, or perhaps the majority of their sentence, and this is a reward at the end of their sentence. It would be ludicrous for them to take off right now because they're almost done. It's almost like a reward for them executing the majority of their sentence. And if the prison system understands that, how much more should families build into our work ethic job promotions, like privileges and freedoms and trust? And when we do those things, I mean, it's very much like happens in the workplace. I mean, what is a job promotion anyway? A job promotion is when you're given more important stuff to do, more people to work with, more compensation, more perks, more benefits. What's the ultimate goal? The ultimate goal of a job promotion is for the worker to have a mindset that says, boss, I am not going to let you down. You want that to be a part of their promotion. It never works. Statistically, they've proven this. One of the worst ways to improve job morale is to give somebody a raise unmerited. Just throw money at them. It doesn't work. But when people earn it, and they know they've earned it, and you tell them they've earned it, there's this mindset that just emerges that says, I am going to do such a good job. You are not going to be disappointed. I think it's important that we view the jobs in the household in the same way. You want to give your kids promotionable jobs that let them know that now you're big enough to check the mail. Now you're big enough to walk the dog. Now you're mature enough to use the lawnmower. So these kinds of tasks are not about the tasks themselves. They are simply a tool. Tasks are tools if they're dispensed with the right mindset and if they're received with the right heart. And when our kids receive that belief that we see them growing, when we see them maturing, it is so huge. All right, so I'm going to throw this up behind me on the screen. The parental line. We're going to look at this in the next video in more detail, but it's such a cool mind map that I have to share it with you. I believe this is something that a lot of parents can, if they'll use this, gain a lot of benefit. You see at the bottom, you've got a child's age, and on the side, it represents the maturity level. There's something called the parental line. Now, for every child, it's a different age, but the parental line is something that we want our kids to cross eventually. You don't want them to cross it too soon, because if they cross it too soon, that's where that word parentified comes in. We'll talk about that more later. But if they don't cross it at all, then that's where rebellion starts to set in. So we want to make sure that we're using these mind maps, this whole idea of bringing a child as they grow, as they mature, into a place of influence, rather than always interacting with them in a mindset of parental authority. Kids love graduation. They do. And one of the things that we as parents ought to be doing for our kids is helping them graduate, not just from kindergarten or from junior high or from high school or college, but graduating from a child to an adolescent, from an adolescent to an adult. And there are parameters that should accompany that. You as the adult in the room are the ones that set those parameters. Children should never set those parameters. All right. So here's the challenge. Think of all the tasks that you have or currently have for your teen to do that in the household, and then answer these questions. Number one, what is the task? Number two, what value do each of these tasks add to the home? And then number three, what does promotion look like for each of these tasks? Now, if you think about just taking out the trash, what a powerful tool that can be as your children understand in the home that everything they do has purpose and can lead to another promotion of trust in that parental relationship. My hope for you as parents, and we'll look at this in the next video, is that you begin to exercise more of an influential authority with your kids rather than always thinking that it's about parental authority. When you make that transition, they'll naturally begin to interact with you in that way. What's our job? Our job is to raise responsible adults, not to keep them as dependent children. I hope we can agree on that. And I also hope these tools are helpful to you. So view the video with who else you need to view it with. If you need to go back and watch it again, take notes, and I'll see you in video number 3.